Hi, good morning, Aoife and Nicola. You're very welcome to the chat here on behalf of Read DL. And we're chatting here today about ADHD and creativity. And in the book, Checkmates, I suppose seeing Felix, who has ADHD, one of the super strengths that you would notice when you take a look at the little bookmark that came with the book is the focus there on creativity. So we'll just get started by introducing each other a little bit. So Nicola, just introduce yourself and who you are and where you come from.
Hi, I'm Nicola. I'm from ADHD Ireland, and my job is just to try and come up with loads of new activities for people with ADHD around the country.
Okay, and Aoife.
Hi, I'm Aoife, and I'm an artist from Donegal, but I'm currently working and living in London.
Very good. And I'm Eilis, and I actually work from the ADHD Learning Curve, and it works from LYIT. And our focus is to give supports to students and to give some educational supports as well to teachers and lecturers in LYIT and further afield. So if anybody has any questions, they can contact us. So today we're talking about ADHD and creativity. And I suppose the first thing is, what kind of creative outlets can young people with ADHD, what can they be really good at? Where do we see creativity with ADHD? What do you think, Aoife?
So, well, I can talk from first-hand experience. I was always that child that was just making things from every type of material you can think of. That wasn't really interested in my own toys and things growing up. I would just make up my own things. Apparently, I was crosshatch, which is a type of art technique with drawing and sketching, shading in my Lion King colouring book as a toddler. So I think from an early age, my mum knew I was creative. Also drama, storytelling, writing, music. I think it's endless with our imagination. And I find that I also work with young children with ADHD and young people, and they just love, sorry, there's a cat in the background. They just love channeling that creativity and using their imagination because it's endless. And I think, like in the book, Felix, he can imagine so much, even just in his head, by staring at a white wall, which I could relate to also. So I think, yeah, just kind of go for whatever way they feel like they can express themselves through that creativity.
Very good. And I know from when I grew up in the countryside of Donegal myself, nature was a big place for creativity for me. And, in the book, Felix is actually up in a tree house, and where I lived, there were lots of trees. So we made lots of huts at home, and then sort of make-believe and role-playing and making up games with other people and interacting with those people, just creating make-up stories. And then I loved sewing. I loved crafting, and so sewing, making dolls' clothes out of scraps of fabric was, and learning to use a sewing machine was amazing. So you could be really creative once you had sort of the right materials to work with, and of course then getting a chance to be in the kitchen, because in my past life I was a home economics teacher, so I got to experiment a lot with baking and sewing and decorating those cakes, which was always the best fun. So there's so many outlets there where we could where children can actually express themselves. And one of the things I actually say to my kids is, especially because they have ADHD, is you're just full of great ideas. And that's something, it's like a little mantra that we have. And anybody with ADHD, if you know somebody with ADHD, you're full of great ideas. As you said, the imagination that flows, and daydreaming, of course, is where a lot of that starts. What about you, Nicola? Any thoughts on where you see creativity with ADHD?
We work, even in my childhood, exactly, you're bringing me back with the huts. We used to carve the turkey off the bark of the tree, and we had our peas and we had our dinners, and we Yeah, you literally, other kids are kind of looking at it going, what do you mean that the turkey? What do you mean? Just think about it, lads. Of course, it's there. Can you not see it? It's in front of you.
Yeah,
That's
yeah.
something
Or
about
mud
ADHD.
cakes.
Okay, absolutely. And that's the thing about ADHD. You pull a game out of nothing. There might be a ball, but the ball is one side of the game. It's not about a game of football. It's a game of actually using people as pawns and doing a totally different game for it. And I think especially when you get 2 or 3 kids with ADHD together, it is absolutely amazing. We did a sports camp there one time and it was no more sports. We ended up with loads of games.
Yeah.
You know, sports is great for people who like sports, and particularly kids with ADHD. I think they prefer a lot of things on their own. They like the drams, they like the creativity, creative writing, poetry, being able to think, and they excel in school as well. You know, they excel by actually being allowed to put that on paper. You know, they might put their hand up in the wrong place, and they might say the wrong thing in the wrong place. But when it comes to the areas they're actually interested in, we have an interest-based brain. We will focus on what we like, and we know there's other things we're meant to be doing we don't really like. But look, everyone, you allow that, but you have to be careful of that as well.
And that actually reminds me of my daughter, who learned ballet, but when she would come home and instead of practicing what she had learned in school or in her class, she ended up inventing her own ballet dances, which, you know, you kind of go, just practice what you've learned. And no, she went off and became her own choreographer, which was really rather fabulous, you know. And we should look at that, embrace it, and enjoy all that inventiveness that young people with ADHD are really good at. And the other thing too that I suppose I don't have a lot of experience with is, like, nowadays young people, and I suppose all of you are in 5th, 6th, and 1st year, that you'd probably know, is technology is a great way to be creative now too. You know, whether you are not so much writing the story, but actually talking into the laptop and inventing the story, taking the story from your mind and putting it onto the screen, and that's your story and it's stored there, or your poem. Sometimes poems flow really fast through us, and we just have to get them down really quickly. So talking into a laptop can be really handy, or even making music through a computer as well can be really interesting. And then there's coding, just inventing new online games. So there's lots out there that is actually really new for young people, and perhaps people with ADHD who are sitting listening to this will relate to that and see that they have lots of possibilities out there to learn new creative skills and new creative things.
Eilish, there's free DJ packages out there online as well that you can use your laptop or your iPad.
And that's brilliant. So then sometimes, of course, there are barriers or obstacles or boulders that kind of get in the way of allowing a young person with ADHD to flourish and to be their best self. And have you encountered any of these obstacles yourself, Aoife?
So I think for me it was, well, from a young age, I dabbled in a lot of ideas that I wanted to be a vet, a teacher, loads of different things. I was changing my mind every 2 seconds growing up. But when I really, as I got older and really kind of got more into my art, I wanted to pursue that as a career. And growing up in Donegal, like, maybe it's starting to get there, but when I was younger, it still wasn't seen as a proper career. You weren't going to get anywhere. Whereas I'm like, well, everything is art. Like, everything you can look at, everything in the world, there's art. It's not this traditional painting and drawing. It's like everything around you. And so that kind of stayed in my mind. And even up until a few years ago, I was like, well, I know I'm an artist, and I have a children's book that I worked on with my friend and one of the staff at Reed DL, Karen. And even then I was like, oh, I'm not really an artist. So it's that kind of, I think it's negativity and these like kind of ways of being negative with us ADHDers. Like, I got diagnosed only a year ago, and I'm now 30. So I've always had, and it still creeps in, this negative thinking that I'm not going to go very far. And in school, I would excel in subjects that I was interested in, like was mentioned. And the ones I wasn't interested in or I couldn't really understand, like maths, I'm horrible. I can't even count in my head. I need my fingers or a calculator or something. So there's like barriers there where maybe teachers or even parents, luckily I had great like support from my mum. And then I think it's like maybe they expect you to not do well because you're maybe not doing well academically, when they're not looking at, oh, they're really good at art or they're really good at languages or English, and maybe if I support them. So it's all about support, and obviously when you're young, that's important for your confidence. Whereas now I'm like, oh, I'm an artist, but I'm also this, and I'm also this, and I also do this, because I like to have many things on the go. But I think for me, it's like that negative thinking in yourself, but also if you don't get that right support, young, it can really affect you.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Very good. It's really interesting. What about you, Nicola? Do you see the barriers that kind of get in the way of creativity, especially if you're a person with ADHD?
Absolutely. And I think one of the issues, certainly for girls, is there's so many boys that are seen and diagnosed early because their ADHD and their hyperactivity is external. With girls like us, I was undiagnosed a couple of years ago. And I'm not saying how old I am. We work through school, we try our best, we sit in all day for 8 hours, try and remember and know tomorrow I will not remember what's going on today. And that is the biggest barrier. It's the self-defeating. You feel walking into the class, I'm not going to do well at this test because I won't remember it. So you've got to talk to people, let your parents know there's something going on. The undiagnosed girls and the undiagnosed boys, there's lots of them as well. It's you're not seen until you're older. You're managing to cope. You're not causing trouble in the classroom, but you are distracted. You know you won't listen to geography because you're not really interested, but history you will pick up everything, even if you are doodling on your page. And you have to learn. So if you are doodling, fidgeting, pulling on your watch, flicking your little silky that you have inside your jumper, that's helping you learn. And don't feel bad about that. But explain to your teacher things are hard. There's something else. And the same with their parents. They might not see it. We're going to schools now with our school accreditation program, trying to explain the flags, explain what goes on in a kid's brain, and trying to get the externals, the teachers to see, get the parents to see. But not everybody will. So it's to let us be able to, as students, if you're only in 5th and 6th class and first year, transition is huge. So if you're not doing well, say it. If you're around, say it. Our emotions, like you said earlier, Aoife, it's hard for us to express our emotions. It's hard for us to hold in embarrassment. It sometimes comes out as anger, especially in a classroom situation, because you're embarrassed and you want to get out of there and you push the table to get out because you can't say, actually, do you know what? I'm getting hurt here, or someone's been mean to me. You don't want to get them into trouble. So lads, don't be afraid to try and talk to a teacher, talk to the caretaker, talk to someone who you actually like. And you might have an aunt or an uncle, but the barriers are there. The barriers are the general educational system. You know, they're a family with 3 or 4 kids and running out the door. That's the hardest part. It's trying to have your ADHD sometimes without knowing your ADHD and trying to cope.
And all that can cause stress, and of course stress limits all that creativity, doesn't it? When you're bottled up and your mind is preoccupied with other things. I know for myself, you know, when I'm getting involved with crafts and with activities that really hold my interest, you know, I'm completely locked in. But you know, very often a person who's been really creative can actually get really distracted when, you know, Christmas comes upon you, or the exams come upon you, and perhaps the music or the art that you're absolutely engrossed in gets put to the side because you're under that pressure, under that stress to try to do well in school or to do well in your test. The other thing, you know, Aoife, you were pointing out there, this idea of losing faith in yourself, not having faith in your own abilities. And sometimes that's because maybe nobody's acknowledging it, nobody notices, nobody sees all the effort and the love that you're putting into the work that you're doing. And we also do have really high standards. We really have this idea of perfection in our head. We have really high standards in our mind of what it should look like. And very often, if it's not measuring up to that, that can actually you know, you might just throw something aside. I'm sure, Aoife, you've got some unfinished artwork.
I have a lot. I also took up crochet before Christmas. I always find last year it was pom-pom making. I always pick up like new things to do, but that's also like a fidgety thing that I do. Like I need to do something while I watch TV. I can't kind of do one thing. I'm either on my phone reading, actually watching something, or listening to something while and it was the same with school. The only way I could focus was doodling all over my books. I'd take notes, then I'd go home, listen to some music, go over my notes, write some more notes. I had like those flashcards everywhere. I was like still haunted by them to this day, especially with the leave insert. I'm like, but yeah, it's finding ways to focus. And if school is aware, if teachers are at home, if parents are aware, that actually helps
It
you
does,
to focus and concentrate, because we can concentrate.
Yes.
It's just we need those tools, and being able to say, look, actually, I know, you know, I may be getting in trouble because I'm fidgeting, whatever, to say I need that. Like I love a good spinny chair, and kind of I'm constantly fidgeting. I've got fidget rings, I've got everything, but like being able to vocalize, say, look, this helps me focus because I can't kind of sit still, like with my hands under my legs. I used to sit on my hands. But yeah, I think it's that idea of like, keeping that creativity going and not getting too in your head about it.
I know you mentioned there about your crochet and all that. But I do have some little thing here that I want to show you. And this is like my unfinished pair of socks that I was knitting for my dad. And I'm afraid at the moment they just look like leg warmers. I could bring leg warmers back into fashion right now. But when you don't, I know that when I was knitting all of this part, I was sort of in the company of people. I was working and chatting to people, and very often, you know, a barrier can be when you might be on your own. Sort of in the pandemic, was really lonely and quiet. So when you're in little craft circles or in classroom groups, when you're working in a team, you're more likely. I am more likely to get this finished when I have people around me that might be knitting along with me. And I think people with ADHD do really, really well in groups. They do really well. And it's an overcoming that barrier as well, by helping people to finish things, the crafts or the art or the music or whatever. We'll just take a look at what benefits, you know, when you're being really creative, what is the benefit for the person with ADHD and everybody around them? What do you think about that, Nicola?
It starts to help to slow your brain down. Like you actually start thinking, you know, when you're doing something that you actually like, you're actually in your calm zone, and it allows you, I don't know that it allows you to help, you know, your memory to do the next assignment for school, but when you're doing something you actually like, it's especially with our emotions, you know, we're up and we're down, and you have to allow yourself to be really down if you're feeling down, because you will go a lot lower than most people will, but be very aware you can bring yourself back out, especially with the creativity. If you like knitting, or you like painting, or even some kids like those, there's the cards that you scrape off, you know, so you're achieving something. I'm not arty. I come up with ideas. That's always been my thing. I'll come up with ideas for games. I come up with ideas for little books that never get finished. You know what I mean? You come up with loads of different ideas. My thing was that kind of, I was never good at knitting. I see your socks. I was just saying earlier, I have a scarf, and it was the one thing I'd seen everyone finish a scarf, and I said, that's the one thing I want to do, because I'd never actually finished anything. Lovely color. I got about as far as there, and then I got another, about a couple of years later, I got about as far as there, and that's it. That's as far as it went. But I do carry it around. It's still my memory of, I haven't finished this. It's a project I am going to eventually do. But it's trying to just, it calms your brain. It definitely, doing something you like, it does not matter what it is. Scraping off the silver off these pictures, at least you have achieved scraping off and seeing a horse. It can go on the wall. It's your achievement. It's something else. Find something you like. It can be baking. We were working with Lizzie Acker from the Great British Bake Off.
Yes, of course.
Amazing. We were there last weekend, and well, she was there last weekend. We were online trying to bake with her. Mine came out totally different to hers. They still tasted lovely.
All part of creativity.
Yeah, creativity, making your Rice Krispie buns. We were actually making cookies on the day. But it's simple things like that. You might not be arty. You might not be into knitting, but you might be into cooking. You don't know until you try. Try it. It's another thing to try.
Absolutely, yeah. And for me, I have to say, what you've just said there really resonates. Where you're an ideas person, we're full of great intentions. That's one of the things that we would often say to ourselves. We're full of great intentions, and you know, when there's a child sitting in a classroom, no, they want to be good. They want to do well. It's just things happen, such as your attention is in several different places at one time, and that's what kind of holds them back. But for me, as you said, it brings you calm. I would say it's a great outlet for your energy. If you're creating dance, if you're doing drama, think about the outlet for energy there, and how your creativity is not just raising your self-esteem and making you feel really good about yourself, but you're actually using energy if you're doing a busy activity or a busy creative, or even, as you said earlier, making up games. I mean, that's the best. You know, inventing games that have never been created before. I mean, somebody came up with chess. You know, somebody had to invent that. And of course, now there's so many other board games, but you can actually make up your own board games. And that's something maybe that, you know, the children in 5th, 6th class and first year, you know, if you've got ADHD, or even if you don't, think about what board games have yet to be created and yet to be invented. So I think it's a great outlet that way for using up your energy. What about you, Aoife? In terms of the benefits, what do you get out of being creative? Because you're an active artist.
Well, I've many projects that are yet to be finished. I'm guilty of that too. Yeah. I think I can agree with both of you. It kind of helps me in times where I need some calm, I need to relax, but it also helps to get out that energy. For me, one thing I've always kind of struggled with, and I still sometimes struggle, is kind of regulating my emotions. And I find that after a long day, I may have kind of all this stuff to just unpack, that I come home, I put on, because it doesn't help just sitting down and trying to do something passive because I've got all this energy going, that I put on some music, dance around my kitchen, sometimes while I'm cooking, because also I get really bored cooking. Like, some people love cooking. I get bored if it's past 20 minutes. And it's probably burnt because I'll forget. So I put on some music. Washing the dishes, also not a fun task. So put some music on and dance around, singing. I've always been into that, and it gets it out. And then I'll go and do something a bit more calming. I used to just love to sit and do something kind of while I'm watching something, because I love movies. I've always been into movies and TV shows. I've always been into drama, both doing drama, like acting, and through drama club growing up. That helped me get my creativity out kind of in a safe space, whereas you can't be, you know, putting on all these voices or being a bit like hyperactive in many places without people going, okay. But in drama club, you can do anything you want. So it's kind of using that, imagination. Like, you come up with all these ideas, and you might be doing something creative and then be like, oh, this is a good idea, I'm going to jot this down, because you never know. So I think for children with that just natural creativity, which ADHDers do have, it may just not be like, you may not be an artist, but you have some form of creative thinking. You've all these ideas. You're going to be the future inventors. You're going to be the future writers, actors, musicians. And it's becoming more popular now in the media, where actors, musicians, athletes are kind of saying, I have ADHD or ADD, and that kind of idea that, look, these are these idols that young people have. They have what I have, so I can do whatever, you know, I can actually do that too. So it's kind of like really going with that creative streak and really just allowing yourself to be creative.
There's great freedom as well, isn't there, with being creative? I mean, that's another thing, you know, and not alone the outlet that it gives you there, but the freedom and to be your authentic self, which is really, really important, especially for girls who do tend to mask. Did I ask you? I've forgotten whether I've asked you, Nicola, about that question. Have I done that?
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
But no, just following on, my mouth was going because I did want to say, and I was trying really hard not to put in. That's something we do. But it's, you're talking about the actors and the actresses and the Richard Bransons of the world. We may not get to that point, but you can be your best self, because with ADHD, you have the extra strength that others don't. You will persevere. When we fail, we'll get up and try again. Others just go, I don't want to be an engineer, it's okay, because that's how the actors got there. Hundreds of thousands of people try to get to the point where Jim Carrey and Will.i.am and Will
Jennifer Lawrence,
Justin Bieber's, Michelle Rodriguez, you know, they're all coming out of the woodwork to say, yes, actually, I had it really hard in school, but I persevered. I got refused, got rejected so many times, but I kept going back. Others get rejected maybe 100 times and say, that's it, okay, I'm not going to be an actor, I'm not going to start this business, I'm not going to make that book. I've started and stopped so many times. But the great thing about our creativity is we don't remember yesterday, so we can do today, and we go again and push it and allow yourself to try again. And that is our experience. That's a huge strength for ADHD. We are risk takers. We will try again. We're so creative. We have massive strengths, and it is about, we're able to multitask. We have the telly going, and mammies give out about the child having maybe the iPad, the telly, and their phone going while they're doing their homework. Now, it's not necessarily good, or the music going in the background, particularly when they're doing their homework. It's something else. It's calming the brain to be able to move.
Exactly.
To be able to clear the brain, to be able to do their homework. So it does. There's a lot of things we have to try and help everybody do.
Very good. And actually, that brings me this little bookmark that we actually gave with every book. One of the words in it actually is the word tenacious, which basically means that you kind of struggle through and you keep going even when the odds are stacked against you. If you don't have the resources or you don't have the support, that you keep going anyway. So it makes you a very strong person. Just kind of, we're coming towards the end now, and we're just looking at the last question, which is how do friends, parents, teachers support a person with ADHD in their creativity? What can they do to help a person with ADHD become their best self and be their most creative self, or to allow their creativity to flourish? What do you think about that, Aoife?
I think it's kind of, support is a huge one, and encouragement, and kind of that recognition is important, I think, from an early age, just to kind of see, wow, you're creative, you're thinking outside the box. I think that ADHDers, we think outside the box, past the box, into the next box, all the way, the box turns into a circle, a triangular shape. Like we don't just think outside the box, we're thinking like way ahead. There's like so many things going on in here, and people think that maybe when you zone out, you're not actually thinking or using this. It's actually the opposite. This is constantly on the go. Sometimes it's hard to stop that. But I think encouragement and support is a huge thing. And acceptance, I think, is important as well, because that also helps you to accept yourself and encourages you in yourself, because it stops that negative brain, that negative voice in your head from kind of overtaking. And like you said, we're tenacious, we're very resilient, we will keep kind of, we get knocked down, but I get up again. I'm starting to quote songs now. But we just keep going. I think it's really good for those around us to kind of hold us and like kind of follow us on our journey. And that's probably the best thing then, when you realize you do have this great support system. So that's so friends, family, teachers, everyone needs to kind of, in the same time, support.
Okay, that's really good. Yeah, thanks, Aoife. Nicola, I mean, this is your area. I mean, you score around the country talking to people looking to support people with ADHD. So, what have you got to say about all of this? How can people around the ADHD give them support?
Well, I think the massive part of it is understanding. Just understanding we're going to have our good days and we're going to have our bad days. We're going to come, especially at home with parents, we're going to come in from a day sitting down, trying to be good, trying not to get in trouble, trying to remember everything, come into the house and we're just going to want to break out. So just let us out to the trampoline or send us upstairs. Let us have time before we sit down to do more homework. Simple things like that can make a massive difference to our mood. Like if the parent can help us, and even the brothers and siblings and sisters can help us do our routines. We're not good at organization. We don't like daily routine. It's boring to us. It's not our creative knitting. It's not our drama class, and it's not our music lessons. So the boring things bore us and we find it hard to engage. So help us in our routine, which, like, if a mom will help us get our gear together for the PE the next day, we won't get in trouble in the morning for forgetting it in the car, and we won't get in trouble for forgetting it in school. So if parents can help us get into the routine at nighttime, have everything at the door, our PE gear, or maybe our art stuff, our stuff for drama the next day, their keys,
Lunch,
their bag, their lunch, everyone else's lunch, it'll actually help the mom and dad in the morning. And if mom and dad get up early, if that's all done and sitting at the door, nobody's going to have to look for anything in the morning. It's going to be a little calmer. And if mom and dad is up a few minutes early to get the makeup on, to get the clothes done, to get the kids' uniforms out, then when we come down the stairs, it's calmer as well. We can sit and have our breakfast. We can have time to get our breakfast in instead of going looking for our socks and looking for our hairbands. And remember, guys, moms and dads and teachers out there, if we have ADHD, or even if we're in a waiting list for ADHD, we still have ADHD. So allow it, if we're told to go upstairs to get our socks, that if we come down with the charger, say, okay, you went up for your socks. You'll remember to tell us, so let us back up. Don't scream at us, because if going into school we're all upset, what's going to happen? We're not going to be able to regulate our emotions. We're going into school on the back foot, not feeling great. Something else small will happen and it'll become a huge thing. We won't think of a thing all day other than what happened this morning. We get hurt very easily. We get embarrassed very easily. And for teachers then to notice that when kids come in, and for kids themselves, you're in school, you're after having a bad morning, say it, you know, say it to your friend. You know, I'm not feeling great today. Say it to your teacher before you actually do something that then they say, oh, out you go off to the principal's office because of something that happened earlier. So communication is really important. And just with teachers, if teachers can just give us a little bit of slack, and what we ask them to do is watch for the red flags, watch for the assignments that aren't done right, for the homework where there's 10 questions and there's only 5 of them done. Watch for where somebody has, they're constantly forgetting the PE gear, or when you're asking a question about what's 3 by 3, the teacher turns around, the child puts up their hand and they say 6. Because straight away in their head, you know, it's an ADHD brain. They're going to say something that they're thinking about, nothing to do, and it could even turn around and say apples because it's what's in their head, not the answer. So not to think of it, not to embarrass them, and just say, okay, what's the real answer? You know, there's simple ways of not embarrassing us. We get embarrassed very easily. So teachers are really, really wanting to work with us. They're wanting to understand, and they're wanting to know. And that's what kids in the classroom, you're sitting there now, you may know you have ADHD, you may not know you have ADHD, but you know you're having trouble and you're making simple same mistakes all the time. These are parts of ADHD. These are things you can't help with yourself. Towards, if teachers and parents know ADHD brain loves active learning, loves moving about, that the teacher gets them to sit up every now and then. You know, you can stand up, you can be talking away, and next minute, okay, everyone stand, and everyone sit down. So the 30 kids in the class get to have a brain wake up, you know. Rewards for good behavior. This goes for parents as well. You know, we do a lot of good things. We might be minding 3 siblings all day long and not a word about it, but you know, we forget to put out the rubbish bin, even though we spent 3 hours minding our siblings and doing something good. We forget to get praised for the positives, you know, and that's what we love. We love positivity. We love when we got something right, because there's so few things we do right. So it's great when someone says, yeah, you did that. Or in drama teachers to turn around and say, do you know what? We're doing this dance, or this sketch, but you know what? We're going to have 10 minutes. We can do your own thing. You know, ADHD brains love to do their own thing in a dance class, exact same.
That's their creativity right there.
There it is. That's what I'm saying. You're allowed then, okay, Nicola, you go do 5 minutes yourself. Mary, you do 5 minutes yourself, show us. That is all about letting us achieve, letting us do what we're good at, what we love. And those dopamine hits, they help us through the day. Our brain is lacking dopamine. That's why we risk take. That's why we want to do something that changes up our day. So that's what it's about. So for parents, just understanding, teachers, keep an eye for the red flags. And for guys out there in 5th and 6th class and going into first year, and those who are in first year, it's not easy. Certainly after COVID, you know, you've first years going into second year that have never really had nearly a full class. They don't know even their friends. Making friends is such a hard thing to do. So keep an eye out for things called transition programs. We do them, but there's other people that do them as well. Try and create groups where they make friends, and asking parents looking on, try and you arrange the play dates. It's not always easy for us to make friends and actually put ourselves out there, you know. So it's nice for parents to get to know other parents. I'm friends with one of the kids I met at a toddler group. We met and the kids were 2, they're now 20, and parents are still friends and the kids are still friends.
Oh, that's really nice. Yeah. And friendships are really important, actually. They're so important because, you know, we get our energy from the people around us. So it's really important that they're positive experiences. And like you said, we are really sensitive, and sensitivity is a real strength. It's not something that we should look at as a negative. It's a real strength to be sensitive, because it means we're also really empathetic to the people around us. And also, you know, while we take so much from our friends, we can give so much back as well in terms of our creativity, whether it is, helping another person find a creative solution to their problem. So creativity, you know, comes in all sorts of shapes and sizes there. One thing I'll just add as well, just because my background is teaching, is, you know, for those students who are in first year, and even the 5th and 6th class students who are heading into first year in the next year or two, you know, the CBAs are a great way to actually combine your creativity with the classroom work that has to be done. Like my daughter did one of her English CBAs on chocolate, because it was her favorite thing in the whole world. And she did really well because she was interested and passionate about chocolate. I mean, she prefers eating it, but, you know, writing about it was the next best thing. And actually, young people with ADHD, for teachers and parents out there, those children will do so well if they're doing something they're interested in, if they're passionate about it. If there are deadlines, yes, they will do it. Or if there's an urgency, that's where they do things the night before, maybe if they're not that interested. But they just need to have things that are interesting to do, and their creativity will shine, even in schoolwork. So that's something like to take home as well. So not to forget that parents and teachers, you know, there are great opportunities there. Find out what the young person is interested in, what they're passionate about, and then use it in the classroom work wherever possible. So that's a way to get the very best out of a person with ADHD. Guys, it's been really, really brilliant. Oh yeah, carry on, Nicola, go on.
Just on from that, just on the subjects you know they're good at, for teachers, and even at home with parents, let them lead the group, let them design the dinner, let them.
They make great leaders. Yeah.
They're great, and they will lead a group really well. They will lead the ideas, help the group along, and carry people who maybe don't have those kind of strengths. You know, use our strengths. It's really important to break down the tasks at home. Give us the things that we can do and we're really good at. Give us praise.
Instant praise too, and instant rewards. I find, instead of this whole, you have to work towards this goal, but then your goals could be smaller goals. Like sometimes for me, it's washing my clothes, which usually they pile up because, you know, sometimes I forget they're there and then I trip over them and I'm like, I need to wash my clothes now. So it's like little things, and I'll be like, oh, you did well today. If you just get up out of bed and you've got everything ready. I still to this day have to prepare all my clothes the night before, all my things I need. And I used to do this for school as well. I think my mum started doing it. She's very good at that sort of thing. And, you know, it's all ready. So I won't have to panic, because I get really anxious if I'm late, or if I'm, you know, if I forget something. So things like that, like I now, instead of someone else praising me for it, I praise myself, and it's
really good
for just doing little things that to someone that isn't as neurodiverse, you know, they may not think, oh, that's a really good big thing, but praise for things like that. So like in school, teachers, you know, you did your homework, or you actually answered all the questions. And I'm a culprit of like forgetting to do homework, or having to do it in like the morning of my class, or things like that, forgetting something. And it's little things like that, you know, it helps us, and then it helps us focus more on our work, because you know, and we feel good because we can be negative and we can let that take over. And it's just trying your best, and your best is a different scale to everyone else's best. And so important.
Thank you so much, guys. We could talk all day, but we are coming to the end of this. I just want to thank both of you for joining me today and having this chat about ADHD and creativity, and the types of creativity that is out there for young people, the barriers that get in the way of creativity, and of course the benefits of creativity and the ways that people can help. Thanks so much for joining Read DL and taking part in the chat. And we hope everybody who watched it here today, everyone in 5th class, 6th class, first years, and their teachers and parents, I hope you all enjoyed it. Thank you very much.